But we're not done. We do have MrGM and Holinka, which actually afterwards had some nice little life tips from Holinka as well. Everyone's noticed that he is in pretty fucking great form.
Yeah. Just work at Blizzard and have access to the Blizzard trainers and Jim's forehead.
Imagine if we all ate lean protein, drank lots of water, got appropriate sleep, engaged in forward ambulation during the start of the morning. A beautiful world where we actually bother to do the things we're supposed to do. Great, now that a whole bunch of people are Googling forward ambulation.
Yeah.
I feel like such a cunt saying that. Let's talk about the Evoker class in PvP. Right, I'll kind of go through these things a bit quick so we're not here all night, and I'm sure some of you have heard some of these things, but there's some good things to discuss. Right, Evoker class then. For their dungeon raid niche, basically hybrid healing is the thing that they're more going to be doing. I think it's like a lot of AoE clump healing.
Yes.
So it seems kind of interesting. Yes. As for the hybrid healing, they actually share quite a few abilities between the two specs. So I think that'll feel quite nice. There's also a new... No,
that means you want to bring 30 red evoker... I say red. TPS evokers. Oh my god, you've ruined the game.
There's also a new raid buff called Blessing of the Bronze they're experimenting with that reduces the cooldown of each player's major movement ability, like, blink, heroic leap, sprint, stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. A bit like the Holy Priest Symbol of Hope that reduces your major defensive CD. So that sounds actually kind of neat. Now they have a class resource called Essence that regenerates on its own. You don't manually generate it. So in my head, I kind of thought...
It's just energy?
Yeah, there's a bit where I thought, like a Hunter's Focus, and now that I think about it, it's like, that's a stupid thing to say. That's not how that works.
Just energy?
Yeah, so energy. Racials, then... So they're a race class combo, which means that a Drakthir and an Evoker are the same thing, right? So their cone knockback, their AoE knock-up, things like that are, they are racials. But
they're not racials?
They're not racials because every single thing they have is a racial. But then it will get a bit weird if they're to say make one of these a warrior, and now the warrior has a cone knockback and an AoE knock-up.
That would make them a bit strong.
Which would be a bit strong.
Having one of them's okay.
You can see the design trouble there. Then there's their chosen identity, which, so you can change the appearance.
Barbershop discount.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's basically that. And some other racials are already in development. For their switching animations, they're still working in that. It won't be the same as Worgen's, but it'll probably be a bit more similar to Rathian in the cinematics, a puff of smoke. Yeah, grand. For the healer, mid-range mobile healer, triaging clumps of people with their breath, healing, and their flight. They've got deep breath, which is similar to the Wrathgate cinematic thing that Alex Trezor does.
I don't want healed by that. Look what it did to both of her.
Mr. Crispy.
Fucking hell.
Sure, it tastes great. There's Dream Breath, which is a empowered charge up ability. So the longer you hold the button, the more shit it'll do. Then Time Magic to preempt damage and set up large healing moments. So you'll want to be thinking about damage is coming in and then use the Time Magic to set yourself up. Sounds neat. And roughly a combination of aspects of Aresto Shaman for the clump healing and then Disc Priest for the planned and preemptive healing, though they really are trying to make it its own thing.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty neat. For other things, the empowered abilities, you can't overcharge them, and it's a 3-second max. They're also basically very aware that it can't be that you always want to do the 3-second one, because then it's just a 3-second cast bar, and that's not fun. But there are fun things that could happen, like using it pre-pull, baiting enemies to come out of line of sight in PvP.
Yeah.
A bit of a cost, sort of risk analysis of how long you do hold that button for, which then makes Blizzard think, okay, the player's foregoing some globals. Why are they doing that? What is the payoff? So examples are, the longer you hold down, the shorter the cooldown will be. The longer the duration of the hot or the dot, maybe it'll hit more targets.
Yeah, which is
all sounds fun. It's a new design space for them.
Yeah, which is very much all to say, almost the same thing of, do you grade that cast? Do you grade that level 3?
Yeah.
Is it worth it? Is it worth getting your healer mad at you? It's okay, you're a Drakthir Evoker, you can just heal yourself up because apparently they're so strong and so great at healing. Bastards.
Yeah, and then to help players with the readability of this, they're making new projected textures on the floor to denote the boundaries.
Yeah. Oh yeah, as in conal telegraphs for players to hit stuff. That's cool. I was going to say because the cone on Time Captain Hooktail is really nice.
Yeah.
It's like a nicer version of the one. It's kind of the same, but it's more readable than the what are they called? The Zymox ads. The massive blast from the Zymox ads that hits you every time.
Yep, it's definitely not my favorite ability.
Indeed.
It's caused a few screams in our first night.
Yep.
Now, as for the things Brian's most excited about, well, the soar ability where you burst forward and hover in the air for a short time, flapping your wings, and there's certain abilities you can actually cast on the move when you're hovering. So that sounds really fun. Flying around, launching things from your mouth, breathing, disintegrate, and channeling damage into an enemy. He thinks it captures the fantasy. So that actually sounds pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah, I think he said at that point, he said in the interview that he's really one of those people who's like, he says like in the game design world that he's like an explosions guy, which is to say that some people joke and chat about it. Oh, you've got a Michael Bay in the O team, but he meant more that like the fantasy and how stuff feels is really important to him. So it's like our player's gonna, not so much with is this an interesting ability to use or does this have a niche design use case? Where he's interested is, do players press this button and feel cool? That's what he wants to see. And that's what they've focused with a lot of the stuff, which is cool. I mean, they've definitely been decent on that with new classes and new abilities. Some of the Covenant abilities have a lot of that feel. Like Convoke, I love pressing Convoke. I-Beam Demon Hunters has always been a great ability. Stuff like that. So,
yeah,
good stuff.
Yeah, it's focusing on the right things. Now, for new race class combos, there are more coming.
Tauren Rogues, let's go.
Yep, there's going to be Tauren Rogues. So
Tauren Mages, people aren't happy.
Rogue, Mage, and Priest, everyone can be that in 10.0. They are thinking of doing more there. Basically, though, the problem with doing more is in some cases that's more animation work to get that. So that could be an ongoing thing. And then examples like Paladin and Warlock, those would probably need some actual lore work.
Yeah, and
that's a good example of that is when they allowed Night Elf mages, and they needed a storyline for that to make sense, given the Night Elf lore, and a deep suspicion of using lots of magic, because that kind of bit them in the ass in the past. Yeah, so other things then, as for sharing talent builds outside of the game, something they've talked about, maybe it'll happen, they don't think it'll be there for 10.0 launch, they want to see what problems players have or what tools they kind of wish they had when this system is actually in their hands, which, honestly, in my head, yeah, whatever, fair enough, an add-on will do this, but I know that's kind of like the wrong attitude to have.
Yes, so I have, as you may be able to see there, I have a number of thoughts on this. Which is mostly that I think that this is interesting because I was thinking about the use case of that. And especially now, because obviously it's the same with like talents now, it's one click, you change the talent, right?
Yeah.
You go, I want to try this talent, either you're in a rested zone or you tell me, go, click, I use that talent now. The worst you have to do is drag a button to your bar. But with this, you have to reorient talent trees to do different things. You'll have to, like old talent trees, you have to take a load of points out, put a load of points in and save. And I feel like there's definitely going to be a class of player that they would like to engage with the system, but are going to just go, just give me, I'll do the clicking 60 things once and call it a day. Especially when you're logging in on a max level, you go, I'll do the one that is good. And then sometimes you go, okay, I'll take, I'll swap Convoke to Incarnation. That's about the height of what some people will do. So in this case of, should we have the ability for people to just go and download builds? I think that's probably better for most players because they won't have to go through, and this is going to sound insane, they won't have to go through the effort of making builds themselves. They'll get a load of builds from whatever source for different situations. And I think that in the long term would probably make people feel more comfortable with actually experimenting because they have templates to work from.
Yeah.
And then they'll be able to think, okay, well, I definitely felt stronger using this build than the other build. Okay. What if I try to make a blend of the two? And I feel like you're ultimately giving people more kind of inspiration to work from. This is fucking come out of nowhere. I know exactly why I'm feeling this and thinking this. Because I've been playing an indie game on Steam called Samurai Bringer. And it's about basically building up your own attacks using base parts.
Yeah, you were telling me about this. This is really cool.
Yeah, and this like stuff like you've got the basic moves of an attack like slash up, slash down, slice, thrust, and reverse slice. So you can combine. You go for a slash down and a slice, and that becomes like a diagonal instead. But then you've got stuff like power, which is about cancelling other abilities or being like, rooted in place and unmovable. There's stuff like wave, there's elements, and you add them, and you basically have like this really interesting kind of group of combos. So you add like, you're a thrust with a spear is just a thrust. But you add a step and a jump to a thrust, and then it's this like jumping thing like a Dragoon would do. And so much of that works for me because there's loads of templates in the game. Yeah. I would find it hard to build something from scratch, but I was looking through a bunch of the templates they have and different characters going, oh, hang on. So I like this character's like slash with a sword, but can I replicate something like that on the spear and try it out? So I think there's a lot of room for giving players inspiration that way. And I think that's probably a good reason to try to do this import, export, share stuff, as opposed to thinking people, when faced with adversity, will climb the wall instead of find the least resistance again. If you can follow. But yeah, it does. Yeah, Magicka is kind of it's got that multiple elements to make different spells. It's a little bit like that. I'm not sure I'd super recommend the game because it's really awkward sometimes, but it's really fun from that perspective.
It's weird because like serializing what this is and just sending it to someone's UI really seems like an easy thing to build, right?
Yeah.
Because in terms of like the data structure in the game, like it's there already.
Yeah, it's there. Just convert it and there you go. Yep.
So,
the most you have to do is like you have to.
Not much work.
Yeah, I mean you need your importer to validation and stuff.
Yeah,
but that's about it.
Yeah, weird. Okay, it would be nice to have. And now one thing for the feedback, testing, etc. They're actually going to do talent trees. They're just going to post them. Now they may do that with say, Wowhead and partners and stuff, just do it on their own website, but they're going to put up talents so we can have talent calculators and give them feedback before alpha.
I'm really looking forward to that day.
Yep. Another thing they said, there's just 2 talent gates throughout the tree, basically just saying, hey, to go below here, you have to spend this many points, which kind of makes sense really for how you manage going through that. Another fun thing for Covenant abilities, actually, they're still debating all of this. There's some things that fit the class fantasy that, will be added. They're doing this in a case-by-case basis. Now, the Abomination Limb for Necrolord was actually mentioned as being appropriate, in addition to Adaptive Swarm and Convoke the Spirits. And I think they actually... didn't he say at one point you might be able to have, like, kind of multiple?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so, cool. I think you could almost end up having the greatest hits of a bunch of things that you've liked over the past few expansions. And I wonder then if that's really going to take away the sting of losing the borrowed power. So big potential with this.
Yeah, it's all about them balancing what the choice is. Because like Convoke versus Incarn, I'm like, Convoke every day until I need Incarn for something.
Yeah.
But then there's cases where it's going to be like, do I pick the thing that is 99% the case or something cool? Shit, I don't know. So it's all about like getting that feel right. So it doesn't feel like we've been pruned that hard, because it's obviously going to come with the pruning by design if you have to choose between these things. But
yeah. Okay, other aspects of PvP. Brawls. So no new BGs, but we are going to be getting new brawls. They have discussed a few different ideas. Some are old PvP world quests or events as an inspiration. As an example, a Black Rook Rumble, Legion world quest turned into a brawl is a kind of fun to jump into, battle royale arena-ish thing. The Heimdall Coliseum from Warlords of Draenor. And also, they've apparently grown the team quite a bit recently, and they are doing onboarding. Holinka basically thinks that these brawls are a great way for the new team members to learn the tool set. And I think that bodes quite well for their general future. So, there you go.
Very, very good.
Oh yeah, also, our entry PvP gear, crafted.
Very nice.
Yep. So... craft entry-level PvP gear with professions. Similar to WoD, it will have a fairly low PvE item level, but a higher PvP one. May have a similar thing to PvE, where PvPers can get certain crafting reagents that could be used to craft more powerful PvP gear. But then, of course, through the work order system, you don't have to be a crafter. You just go to the work order system and get a crafter to do that for you.
Yeah, and that's a case where if they're to follow the possible examples, then this would be you make more powerful PvP gear, and maybe that drops from PvP. Maybe that's a PvP reward that you hand to a crafter through the system that's bound to you, so you can't just go and buy it.
Yeah.
Obviously, that would then immediately go, what do you mean more powerful PvP gear? Is that more powerful in PvP? You just ruined PvP gearing. But, in terms of PvP gear that, maybe it's strong. Maybe that's how it's become stronger in PvE. You can start from a higher level, stuff like that, yeah. Something like that. It seems like that whole crafting gear system has a lot of potential.
Yeah. Now for the drakes you get, well, they're not going to be separate drakes. They are drakes as a part of the dragon riding system. A prestigious version of the Dragon Isles drake that will have customizations that can also go into your standard drake as well. The vicious mounts will be there, but will also be ground-based. They'll be based on some of the cool creatures in the Isles, and Holinka says the Season 1 one is pretty sweet. So, there's that. Drakthir restrictions then. The first Drakthir that you create has got nothing in terms of restriction other than purchasing Dragonflight. Additional beyond the first one, though, have got to be on a realm where there's at least already a level 50 character and only one Drakthir per realm. Kind of the usual controls they've done for hero classes in the past. PvP world quests will be returning in Dragonflight. Those are not in Shadowlands, right? Yeah, that's a bit weird. And then Gladiator Stance, too much of a headache, ain't going to come back.
Yeah.
I think we could all agree it was pretty cool, but we can also understand why.
Indeed. I guess we'll just talk about interviews broadly. To begin with.
Yes.
Because I think the interviews so far have been way better than anything we're used to.
Totally.
And I know some of that specifically for like MrGM. I heard people say that he was very like prepping really hard, looking at other interviews and like talking about what other interviews from like the press were like missing and stuff. And then he goes in and him and Holinka have a great time getting really like he gets really great information out of him. And everyone's like, that interview's great, that was fantastic. And then as McGull talks to Ian, you're like, where did the Ian of never saying anything go? Because Ian
very
said,
different from Preach Conversation number 1. Remember that?
Yeah, absolutely. It was. It's like I remember I was a little bit worried for like one question or two questions. Like, oh, these seem pretty kind of not really super solid questions, but they were warm up. But as soon as he started talking about like the add-ons, the master loot stuff, I was like,
well, Ian slipped good things in there because, like,
absolutely.
I know that the first question, what did you like most about Shadowlands? Like, I mean, hey, that's a great warm up.
Yeah.
But even in what was evidently like the cozy warm up question, Ian he qualified it by saying, "Say what you will about Sylvanas or the Jailer."
Yeah.
So it's like he clearly knows people have shit to say in that, right?
Yeah.
Which it's that sort of thing. I think awareness is really most of what we want. I mean, most of what we want is action based on awareness, but the first thing you need there is a display of awareness of the situation, and that's consistently what we've got in these interviews. It's been way better than what we'd expect. And then even in the community council forums, they've had blue posts on some questions about PvP, some things about talents as well. Yep. Just generally speaking, way better. Like, it's so different to... I mean, even the situation with the launch of BFA, where they were just sitting there kind of like defending the friction of Azerite gear reforging. This just feels like a completely different way of talking. Now, I guess there is the big difference of that was them post-ship. This is them pre-ship, so maybe there are different incentives. But overall, from what I'm seeing, it's good.
Yeah, I think there's maybe something to be said about how like there was nothing pushed on that like Ian had to defend or could defend, or basically in any of these interviews. It's not been, oh, why aren't you doing this? And they're going, oh, we have to, put up defensive stance and put up a mitigation to like try and stop this. It is just a very nice back and forth of, you're right. That's something we're looking into. That's something here's our thoughts on it, by the way. Here's why we can't do it immediately. Here's what we're thinking. And it's like that stuff that's just going to very much work.